Good day, folks, and welcome to the Anorak Review Show with your host, the Anorak. Well, since my review of Kate Bush's The Dreaming ended up being one of my most viewed episodes of the show so far, I figured why not cover another one of hers, especially since in a few weeks it would mark the 45th anniversary of the release of her debut album. But of course, I should offer a little background on her early years first. Born in the county of Kent in 1958 to an English father and an Irish mother, Kate started practicing on piano and even started writing songs as early as age 11. By age 13, in early 1972, she and her family produced a demo tape to send to various labels and companies, only to be turned down each and every time. However, such tapes soon got the attention of a one David Gilmour. Oh yes, that David Gilmour of Pink Floyd. And yes, I'll be looking at a particular album of theirs this March, I promise. So he helped out Kate in making a new demo tape of more professional quality and pitched it over to EMI Records, who already had some connections with Pink Floyd under Harvest Records. Naturally, EMI approved and signed her on, and they would release pretty much most, if not all, of Kate's studio albums up until about 2011, as Kate would start her own label, Fish People, which she would release her two most latest studio albums, Director's Cut, which comprised of certain tracks from the Central World and Red Shoes albums, remixed and recorded, and 50 Words for Snow, which I reviewed all the way back at the end of 2021. That was also when I was first confronted by that weird Spacer Act guy. Good grief. I don't think I can even begin to imagine what he might be doing right now. Especially with what has been going on lately over the other side of the world. Well, anyways, after performing in several pubs with a band she established called the KT Bush Band, in order to gain experience, public attention, and preparation for actual recording of her music, the album itself would eventually get made and released by February 1978, and become something of a commercial and critical success, immediately putting Kate herself on the map. And it's that album we'll be looking at today. So let's jump into Kate Bush's 1978 debut album, The Kick Inside. The cover itself is very good and interesting, featuring Kate herself hanging onto a big kite, which seems to reflect one of the songs in the album, which we'll get to very soon. Right up close to a giant all-seeing human eye. Or that she's very tiny. Man, if that eye blinked, it would hurt both itself and Kate. The overall artwork has this sort of Chinese or Japanese style going on with it, with the font of the singer's name and the album title, the kite itself having a Asian-style dragon, and the overall drawing of the eye itself. I kind of dig it. So, let's start digging into and analysing the music itself. And maybe snark about them, of course. I mean, what kind of show do you think this is? We begin the album with Moving. And quite honestly, I couldn't think of any other better song to begin such an album like this, if not Kate Bush's music and career altogether in general. It starts with the sounds of Whale's song, much like The Whale from ELO's Out of the Blue. And hey, I got a lot of views on that episode as well, come to think of it. However, unlike ELO's The Whale, where it was merely synthesizers that emulated the sounds that a whale would make, this song actually features real whale vocalizations, which were part of an album called Songs of the Humpback Whale, a collection of whale recordings produced by Dr. Roger Payne. And such are already quite otherworldly and beautiful. To paraphrase what Kate herself said once in an interview with Sounds magazines, such creatures are huge and tough, yet beautiful and intelligent. They weigh a ton, yet they float ever so lightly, which definitely fits in with the moving theme. Then about 20 seconds in, we get an electric piano by Duncan McKay, who, on top of being in Kate's first 3 albums, was also involved in a few albums by bands such as 10cc, Camel, and the Alan Parsons Project, as Kate begins to sing about a moving stranger. Soon we also get the bass of David Patton of Pilot, who also worked in a few albums by Fish, Camel, Elton John, Rick Wakeman, and the Alan Parsons Project, as well as the drums of Stuart Elliott, who plays such for other artists like Al Stewart, Paul McCartney, Roger Daltrey, and the Alan Parsons Project. Seeing a pattern here? Kate Bush must have really liked Alan Parsons. The song in question is actually a tribute to Lindsay Kemp, a classical dancer and mime artist who not only tutored Kate but also David Bowie as well. Imagine if Bowie and Kate Bush ever did a duet together. I mean, she would eventually do one with Peter Gabriel, with Elton John, and even friggin' Prince, so why not a fellow dance and mime student like David? Although, considering how rather romantic some of the lyrics seem to get, like, how you move me with your beauty's potency, you give me life, please don't let me go, and you crushed a lily in my soul, it seems like she had a bit of a crush on him, despite the fact that he was about 20 years her senior. Precocious crush, I guess. But anyway, this is a lovely and soothing song to begin such an album like this. Then, with some more whale song, we transition over to the saxophone song. Creative title. This is in fact one of 2 songs on the album to have been recorded as early as June 1975, while the rest were done across the summer of 77. And bear in mind that Kate was already 16 years old when she made this. And you could barely hear any noticeable difference in age at all, even when comparing the songs. That alone is impressive and just goes to show how much of a wonderfully youthful talent Kate is. Over a bit of piano and acoustic guitar, Kate sings that you'll find her in a Berlin bar in a corner and brooding. Is she going to tell Sam to play it once for old time's sake? You know that I go very quiet when I'm listening to you. Yes, even when you read 50 Shades of Grey out loud, she tries her best to hold back laughter. Then in the chorus, when Kate sings, tuning in on your saxophone, we get, fittingly, a saxophone, being played right immediately after by Alan Skidmore. Although, if I didn't know any better, I would have easily believed it was Dick Parry, which seemed ironic since David Gilmour was credited as an executive producer for this song and the other one that Kate recorded in 75. In the second verse, Kate brings up that the candle burning over your shoulder is throwing shadows on your saxophone. And it's probably going to leak hot wax onto that nice shirt of yours. And burn your skin as well. A surly lady in tremor, the stars that climb from her bowels. And she must have some pretty severe diarrhea. All jokes aside, this is a very cool and jazzy kind of track, and it's definitely worth playing out loud if you happen to be in a mostly calm and empty pub late at night. Next, we get some strange phenomena. Andrew Powell, who produced the overall album and the next one, Lionheart, and would even go on to do the music score for the film Ladyhawke, plays the Fender Rhodes piano here, and at first gives off something of a haunting vibe within the first start of the track, as Kate sings that, soon it'll be the phase of the moon when people tune in. They're trying to tune in on that new radio station that only plays whenever there's a full moon out. But then, when she sings, every girl knows about the punctual blues, but who's to know the power behind our moves? Duncan McKay's twinkling synthesizer joins along to shift the mood into something more comfortable and resolving. A day of coincidence with the radio and a word that won't go away. And that word is bird, and bird is the word. Everybody's heard about that. Don't you know about that? We know what they're all going to say. G arrives, Funny had a feeling he was on his way. I mean, I too figured he would come along to help us infiltrate a big mansion to take down a big zombie outbreak. That or it's the G-Man telling Kate Bush to rise and shine, wake up and smell the ashes. Then, in the uplifting chorus, we raise our hats to the strange phenomena, as soul birds of a feather flock together. The overall track seems to be about the strange coincidences and feelings of deja vu that we may have in our lives, even if we may disregard such thoughts and occasions. Or, according to some people, it's about menstruations and having periods. Although, to be fair, considering the previously mentioned lines of phase of the moon that people tune in, and every girl knowing about the punctual blues, it shouldn't surprise me all that much. But despite all that, this is still a pretty sweet song regardless of how you may interpret its lyrics. Afterwards, we have Kite, a reggae-inspired track with a bit of a funkish beat and a tone that ranges from groovy to grimsy, if you will. And even featuring Duncan playing on a clarinet and a Hammond organ. Can't go wrong with a bit of Hammond organ, eh? In the first verse, Kate sings, Beelzebub is aching in my belly-o, my feet are heavy and I'm rooted in my welly-os. Meanwhile, Asmodeus is aching in her pancreas. She wants to get away from all these window mirrors. And looking at eye level, it isn't good enough. She prefers to see at knee level. But then, when she takes a good look up, she sees a hole in the sky with a big eyeball calling her. Though I assume it's God trying to tell her to seek out the Holy Grail. As the Wanderer's chorus would explain, it's actually a diamond kite on a diamond flight, as the cover art itself would indicate, over the lights and under the moon. And also she sings to come up and be a kite and fly a diamond night. Boy, this new version of Let's Go Fly a Kite is weird. The first verse seems to be about how Kate has grown tired and stressed from everyday life and she desires to spend some time away from it all. Then upon seeing a kite, she soon imagines what it would be like to be one. Flying free without worry or care, like Lucy in the sky, flying with crazy diamonds. Then in the second verse, she feels a rush along her body like a bullet. No doubt a silver bullet with her silver Buddha. She's 2D after a push and a pull feeling. Me? I'm more noodle after a pull and push feeling. She's got no limbs and is like a feather on the wind. Apparently she has tetramelia syndrome. It's a real thing, look it up. Then she decides that she wants to get back home safe and sound. She'd like to be back on the ground, but she doesn't know how to get back down. This likely represents how she has gone too far out of her comfort zone and now wishes to get back somehow, even if she had lost her way. It's a bit like the classic Icarus fable, flying too high and fast and you'll end up falling down low and fast. Pretty straightforward with its message and allegory, and all its layers beneath a very unique Kate Bush song, even amongst her own discography. Following that is one of the more well-known songs in this album, if not all of Kate's discography, The Man with the Child in His Eyes. The other song of two that she made back in 1975 and when she was 16, this is quite honestly one of the most beautiful songs I have ever listened to so far. Part of it is due to its very simple nature. Kate's angelically youthful and youthfully angelic voice, the piano, the orchestra, and all that electively produced by David Gilmour. And not only that, but apparently Kate had written the song as early as age 13. That alone is impressive. The track itself reminds me a little bit of Art Garfunkel's Bright Eyes from Watership Down, which may be funny since both these songs and the film all came out within the same year of 1978. Both are very, very big and very simple and emotional pieces with pastoral orchestrations, which give them a somewhat folky yet very otherworldly atmosphere. As you might guess from the title and chorus alone, the lyrics seem to center around a peculiar man, or certain men in general, with childlike mannerisms and mindsets, a sense of innocence, naivety, and purity. Kay herself never confirmed who specifically she based it around, if even anyone at all. Some might have speculated that it was likely a former boyfriend of Kate's, or even David himself, among a few other individuals, which wouldn't be likely since Kate wrote this when she was 13 years old, meaning around 71 or 72, before the two would even meet. But maybe it doesn't have to be about one person in particular anyway, but about anyone who may still feel like a child at heart despite being an adult in both mind and body. Besides that, though, the music itself is beyond heavenly. The orchestra and that piano work together to create this almost Disney-like feel to it, especially during the chorus. It almost seems like a musical number that would fit in well with the classic golden or silver ages of Disney feature animation. The Man with the Child in His Eyes is one of my favorite Kate Bush songs, if not one of my favorite songs in general. Maybe it speaks to you as well, and to the child in your eyes. Side 1 ends with another well-known track, Wuthering Heights. If and when it isn't running up that hill that most people may think of when thinking of Kate Bush songs, it's this one. As the title may suggest, it's generally based around the novel of the same name by Emily Bronte. Kate herself was inspired by the 1967 TV adaptation starring Ian McShane, or maybe the 1970 film adaptation with Timothy Dalton as well. And it turns out that both Kate and Emily share the same date and month of birth. So does that mean that I should do a song about VeggieTales since I happen to have the same date and month of birth as one of its creators? The song is generally from the perspective of the character of Catherine Earnshaw, or Cathy for short, and her love-hate thing for Heathcliff. I guess she's trying to figure out whether she prefers him or Garfield. Nah, it's actually Heathcliff, who's the name of another major character of the novel, as Cathy sings about him in second person, acknowledging his flaws like having a temper like jealousy and being too hard and greedy. And there's that fantastic and iconic chorus where Cathy tries to reach out and call to Heathcliff, begging him to let her through his window. Is she gonna come through the bathroom window while being protected by a silver spoon, before sucking her thumb and wandering by the banks of her own lagoon? However, it is implied that Cathy is a ghost here, which adds to the bittersweet gothic romantic tragedy of the story. And of course, there's that beautiful guitar solo, whom some people might have thought was done by David Gilmour, but no, it's actually Ian Barston of Pilot and the Alan Parsons Project. What does hold it back a bit, though, is that the guitar seems to sound a little bit quiet in the overall mix, even in remasters. Even the audio engineer who was involved in this, John Kelly, openly regretted not making it louder or stand out. And that might be part of the reason why, in 1986, when Kate was well into her popularity and when the Hounds of Love album was very recent, she decided to do a new version of the song with newly recorded vocals of hers for the whole story compilation album. Whichever version you may enjoy more than the other, I'll leave you to your preference, but me, I love them both equally. While the original has Kate's higher and more youthful voice, the new vocal version has a more grown-up and mature voice. But anyways, Wuthering Heights is still a beautiful, bittersweet, and atmospheric musical piece, and it still remains one of Kate Bush's best and most iconic signature tracks.